Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. If you please rise and join me for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to thank you, everybody, for being here today, especially in the middle of the day, different time for us to have our board meetings, but it makes it much more handier for all the events going on in the evenings during this month. Do we have any need for translation? Okay, seeing none. We'll go on to the approval of the agenda with a couple additions. To C1, we have a document we need to have added to that. And then also at the end of the meeting, we need 15 minutes for executive session to discuss the performance of a public employee with no action being taken afterwards.
I motion to approve the agenda with the 2 amendments.
And I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So carries. Next thing on the agenda is recognition.
Yes, I'd like to invite Principal Will Von Brochtford for a special recognition for a team from Hiawatha Elementary.
All right, thank you, school board. We're excited to get this team in front of you. A couple months ago, actually, I talked to Marisa and I said, hey, we have some recognition for our math at school, but I told her to wait because they had some ongoing competitions they had earned their way, and we're really glad we waited because they've continued to achieve great things. So I'm going to invite Mr. Smith and Mrs. Ochoa to come up, and the team to come up, our 6th grade math at school team, and then I'm going to turn the time over to Mrs. Ochoa and Mr. Smith to let you all know what this team's achieved this year.
Well, thank you, school board. My name's Mr. Smith. So this team here started out with practices in October. We did this once a month, well, not once a month, but every Monday. They had commitment, and we had about 18 to 20 members to start off with. And every Monday for about an hour and a half, they would practice math problems, ranging from mental math to algebraic expressions and so on and so forth. And they competed within regionals at in the Tri-Cities. We gained 1st place in individual, 2nd place in individual, and 4th place in individual. So we had 3 members place in the top 5 and 6 members place in the top 10. And then as a team in our division, we also placed 1st, which was one of the first for us in a while. That then granted us to what we call Masters, which is like state for sports. That was held in Moses Lake. And for the first time in Hiawatha history, we placed at Masters, gaining 2nd in our division. And we had Amaya, who placed 1st overall in individual, gaining 40 points. And as a team, we actually beat higher divisions as well, so larger schools. So our scores calculated into that. So really proud of this team and all the work that they put out. It's become really difficult. The math, I'm a 6th grade math teacher. The math that these students are learning are very advanced. They get up into calculus, and the mental math, there's a paragraph that they have to read, and they have to remember all of that. So it's really impressive that the work they've put out, and we're excited to share the news with this team that we have here. So I'm gonna hand it off to Mrs. Ochoa if she has anything else to add on.
Hi, Mrs. Ochoa. I'd just like to thank the students for their dedication, because that was every Monday until February, and then we hit it again just before we had to go back to Masters. And it takes a lot of dedication to want to come after school and work on math. So that was refreshing, and I just appreciate all their hard work. Thank you, guys.
I just wanted to, were you going to speak, Ella? No, okay. I just wanted to, huge shout out. again, I don't know how many of you are like me. I don't know if in 6th grade I would have signed up for a really fun club where I stayed after on Mondays and did more math problems. So they did really, really awesome, but I think that also speaks to the number of kids that were out doing it, to the culture that Mr. Smith and Ms. Ochoa have created, even in the classroom during the day. So huge achievements for Math is Cool. First time that, and since I've been around, that we've been able, I think they said the first time ever that we placed at Masters, which is the state competition. But those impacts are being felt in the classroom as well. So we just had 21 of our students, which is 25% of our students in the whole grade level, so beyond just these students, test into being able to take algebra in 7th grade, so skipping their grade. So we had, I believe, 7 last year, and we've upped that to 21 this year. So just really, really exciting stuff that's impacting these kids and being able to go out and have these experiences in competition, and just impacting the overall achievement and progression of our students. So we're really excited for them, and we're grateful that we were able to come here and recognize them. So.
Yeah, can we get a picture with you guys?
When I was at Hiawatha 100 years ago, I did math at school with Mr. Krebs. All the way back then. I'm glad it's still going. And congratulations again.
Yes. When I went to Hiawatha 150 years ago, Mrs. Ochoa was my 6th grade teacher, and she is, in my opinion, the best of the best. So congratulations to your team. That's amazing.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for bringing them to that well. Student representative reports.
Good afternoon. Are brought up by a lot of students. As for school lunch and SmartPass, we surveyed a lot of students from both of our grades. And then from there, we reported all that back to the school district lunch program. We decided to meet with them, and we gained a lot of new intel on how school lunch works, and they're very hard workers. They have a lot to do, but one of the main things we learned about school lunch is that we can't necessarily fix a lot of it, since these restrictions come from the state level, and it's all up to the manufacturers. But we did come up with one solution. We decided to possibly create some sort of survey in the future to decide to rate this item from 1 to 5, so the highest rated items can become on the school lunch menu more often. But this is a message to all students. If you guys have any issues with their food, please report it to the kitchen staff immediately, since they're always looking for feedback, and they also encourage everyone to gain their voice out for school lunch. As for SmartPass, we met with Mrs. Sashton, and we learned the ins and outs of how SmartPass works. And as there, we decided that not much could be changed about SmartPass, since it comes with certain rules and regulations as well. And there should be a bathroom within a 5-minute radius for all students. And that should be it. But we also decided to give some classrooms more time, just in case they were more farther from the corridor restroom. An example would be classes that are located at the close to the portables. Yeah, the 600 wing. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I hope you guys are having a good day. My student rep report is about Advent night and the scholarship night in the past week. So with Avid Night, they're recognizing kids who went through Avid for the past 4 years in the high school and some Avid awards, and then that's when they get to pick up their blue cord for graduation. And then for Scholarship Night, that was last Tuesday at the high school corridor. Lots of local community places, a lot of local businesses and lots of local people were out giving away some scholarships to high school seniors to be able to help them pursue a higher education. There was lots of kids there, lots of really, really, really good people there. So like all of the scholarships that were handed out was well deserved. So congratulations to all the people that won the scholarship night, and I would like to say thank you for the people who helped out with that night by giving students who really wanted that specific help and need to get into their higher education as well. So that was a big thank you for our community for being so supportive to high school seniors to help them pursue what they love to do. And that's my report.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on to board member discussion. Okay, I'll start off with the legislative report. Theron?
Yep, the only thing I had to add for legislative report was that WASDA recently put out a new Washington Public Schools Funding Frequently Asked Questions document, and it is super helpful. Things about prototypical school funding model, levies, and the Clery decision, things about local effort assistance. It's very informative, and I enjoyed reading it and learning more about how the Washington school funding stuff works. So.
Okay, thank you. As you can notice by the screen, we are having problems with the board docs.
We had Avid and Scholarship Night recap. Katie did an excellent job of providing that, but certainly would entertain more comment from the board. The board retreat agenda for Thursday was attached as well for your review.
Okay.
And Ludicago Dual Language Night is June 11th at 6:30 p.m. So we wanted to make sure that was on your calendars and became. And who would want to attend that event? June 11th, 6:30 to 7:30. I believe that's a Tuesday.
Count me in money.
Okay. So,
At least two, it looks like.
Yeah, I'd like
Yes.
to be there
So
too.
Yeah.
we'll announce a quorum, and then whoever can attend can be there. And then the final item was the preschool site visit draft agenda. That's scheduled for May 21st. So we would look for feedback from you if you have concerns about that agenda.
is there any more to add that for board member discussion?
I just wanted to mention, I was able to attend both Avid Night and Scholarship Night, and they were both amazing, just to see the progress that our students are making and all the, they all have, plans to go on to further education and to, just to keep going. Both programs were really amazing to see the work of those students.
I'd like to give a shout out to the students that our school district is producing. When we looked through the applicants to give out our board scholarships, it felt like trying to pick your favorite child. Like, it was so difficult because they were all so deserving. So kudos to everything that you guys are doing to get them up to their senior year, because everybody has a hand in these kids' success from kindergarten to 12th grade. But the applicants that we looked through and the kids that were getting awards at Scholarship Night, and I know that there are others who didn't apply for scholarships that are also amazing and deserving, but I was just blown away at the level of excellence that we have in our students coming out.
And I was impressed actually with our community and the generosity of our community in order to give out these scholarships every year. I think it was just over $72,000 in scholarships this year. And that's our community saying a lot for our students and how much they believe in them and back them and willing to support their future.
I also want to say something about our staff and the teachers in Avid. You could tell 4 years with those kids, their hearts were really into those kids, and to see the emotions on their faces. So I'd like to say thank you to them as well.
Yeah, I know. on the scholarship night too. We spent hour plus looking at all the applicants, and we probably could have spent 8 hours and just going over and over, and yeah, every one of them, yeah, we all, what about this kid? What about this kid? And it was, yeah, it was, for my first time reading through it, it was a really an eye opener, and then kudos to the staff and the school, and yeah, the amount of scholarships that are available was really impressive too, because when I graduated in '91, I don't remember nowhere near that many scholarships, so it's just great for the community. And then, yeah, as long as all the kids know, there's a lot of scholarships available for them, so.
Okay, we will move on to required approvals. Do I have a motion for the required approvals?
I motion to approve the required approvals.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Required approvals for the accounts payable warrants 2, and I will be abstaining from this vote.
I motion to approve the required payable warrants 2.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carries. We'll go on to superintendent informational items.
Yeah, so I believe, yeah, there we go. The NSBA presentation, we're having an issue with board docs. It's not with OSD resources, but board docs itself. I know that right at the end of spring break, the school board attended the National School Board Association Conference in New Orleans. It was, it's probably been about a decade that board members from Othello have been attending this event in different iterations. It's the first time for me to be there with the entire board, and also to have our student reps there. So we're going to share a bit about our learning and what we talked about and learned while we were in New Orleans. And then the student reps have a short presentation that they want to do as well. For we are missing one, Miles Glasgow, who's going to be our student rep here coming up when we have the transition with Katie. He attended with us as well. And so it was an excellent opportunity for us to gather. And I really appreciate the administrators who could be here today. We were trying to make the board, we're putting you sort of shoes on the other foot experience. You're going to have the experts in the room listening to you give your board report. So we'll have them give you some feedback at the end, maybe. Christina's taking notes. No. The very first slide, the next slide, oh, I'm supposed to change it. Some of us had the opportunity to attend a session on strategic planning. And so this session, what really resonated with me was how they talked about how you should go about doing this in a successful way. Make sure you include a lot of folks. Make sure you have a core team of people helping think about the work. Include your unions. Really think about instruction and what you want, the kinds of experiences you want our kids to have, and use student voice. Those recommendations from a school district who's doing it really well and is being recognized at the national level, it tied in so carefully with the process we've been through. So I was encouraged and affirmed to hear that description of strategic planning. And then one other component around the strategic plan that we just wrapped up here last week was this idea about a scorecard and measurable targets, so that when principals and directors get in front of the board and the community and say, we're making efforts in this area to do a better job, we're going to be able to measure that and pick out those targets. And so I appreciated, again, this example of ways to talk about how do we make sure kids are in school more often. Miss school, miss out. That's a motto, but what does it really mean? How do we make sure that kids are taking rigorous courses so they're prepared for college? When you think about AVID, that's what AVID's all about. We're pushing you to be prepared. When you hear Principal Von Brock talk about his 6th graders doing well at Math Masters and also lining up to take algebra in 7th grade, that sets up this course-taking pattern that we want all of our kids to experience. The 3rd grade reading it's the lever across the country and one that we're going to pay attention to. And then students saying that they feel like they belong and are connected to our schools. So I appreciate it, again, a school district being recognized for doing outstanding work. It's the kind of work we're chasing as well, and I appreciated that learning at NSBA. The next one was on restraint and isolation, and this was interesting to be there at a national conference and hear from our neighbors in Spokane. And so Director Pruneda and Director Gerber attended that session.
This one, our main takeaway was just like, we hadn't really heard much about this yet, and so we had a lot of questions about what is done in our district specifically. we talked to Pete a little bit about that, and he showed us the policies, and I think we even talked about maybe having a presentation about that. So yeah, my main takeaway was just to research what we do here and how that all works.
Yeah, probably my favorite part about this event was, I think it was day one that this happened, and so Azaro and Aaron hadn't been to a conference like this in this setting with educators, and so they were just blown away by these presenters from Spokane and Bellevue, I think. And right after this session, we went to lunch, and we had a large group, and so we couldn't all sit together. And I look up, and Aaron and Azaro are sitting with these 3 people, just having like their fast friends. It was the presenters from the morning session, so they got a real intense double dose about restraint and isolation. And one of the things we're going to do moving forward is have Heidi Wagner and her team come forward and talk about the things that the principals are implementing day to day, what it means when we do restrain a student at school, how do we notify families, what are our practices and protocols. So it's good learning for all of us. The next one was about success in workforce, and I think Director Prowse attended this one, and it was this idea about, and the next piece about our senior reality check, and some real connections to CTE. So I know that Lindsay really enjoyed that session.
I did. They talked a lot about knowing your community, and I feel like Amy Paris especially has a really good grasp on our community. I had met with her a couple of years ago about implementing the program with the semis so that our students could graduate and have their CDL license. Sorry, I couldn't think of the CDL. Anyway, so our CDL program and all of that kind of stuff. The district that led this particular session that I was in was roughly our size. And my favorite part was when I was judging the senior presentations this year, the seniors talked a lot about doing a job shadow. And this district had taken it a step farther, that the job shadow was actually a 6-week internship, to where they were, businesses in their community had agreed that they would take on however many students at a certain time, and that they would let them literally work, 5 to 7 hours a day at their business, and the things that they learned. And it was, it was more than just a site visit or a presentation at these different businesses. It was really hands-on for 6 weeks. And they said the clarity that these students got from this 6-week internship was really invaluable to know if they wanted to be a veterinarian or not, or if they wanted to go into the medical field, or if they really wanted to be a mechanic, if they really wanted to work in construction. Just all of these different jobs that they could really try out and try on. And so that was one thing I apologize, it's not applicable to anybody here, but I was wanting to talk to the high school principal or Amy Paris about, was this idea of an internship for our students, and this reality check. And I wrote down a list of things that I need to do with my own kids. The reality check of, does your child know how to change a tire? Does your child know how to write a check? Do they know how to balance their checkbook? Things that we hope that they are learning in school, but also the reality check from a parental standpoint of, like, have I really prepared my child for the real world? Do they know how to grocery shop? And just a few other things that on the school side, they are going through this checklist with their students to make sure that they are ready for their next steps for the real world.
Yeah, I appreciated the connection between what Lindsay described about what we're trying to do with the CDL course and what we're trying to do with pursuing an AA full-time in our schools. Like, what are those really sort of end capstone experiences for our seniors at our high school? When I think about a senior reality check, as you were describing it there, there's probably a reality check for us as well from our own kids, right? I think about some of the skills and concepts that they have. Does your dad know how to use Venmo? Like those kinds of things that they're probably checking on as well. But again, another example of a school district of similar size, similar context, where we can go and learn from, hear their expertise, and think about how does that fit in our context and how do we do it just a little bit better. So thank you for sharing that. The next one was around sort of speed and efficiency of change, and Ken attended this one and got to listen to them talk about, like, how long does it take to move a system?
It's kind of interesting because the system is changing very quickly. And the workforce is changing just as quick with it. And it kind of feeds back on some of what Lindsay was saying, is having our students ready. Some of them aren't ready for college afterwards. They're ready to go on for a career. And it was discussing some of that and some of the different issues that they've had. As you look at this chart, you take a look at some of the things that we are actually addressing in a lot of our strategic plan. The critical thinker in the students, effective communicator, culture around here too. It was just really interesting to hear some of their issues that they have and how much they are very similar to the things that we are addressing here too, even though it's in New York, the presenters for it. And it was really nice to know that actually we are there too, along with them.
Yeah, I think an important part of attending conferences sometimes is to learn new things, but also to affirm the work that you're doing. And what was nice about this one was the commentary about having a plan, thinking about strategic planning and getting changes and improvements in place, and how it connects to the student experience. And before we started this presentation, there were comments about how powerful the scholarship applications were and what Avid Night felt like and Scholarship Night. The picture in our heads of the graduates coming out this year is pretty positive. And so it's thinking about how do we make that happen consistently for every kid in our community. So thanks for sharing that, Ken. The next one was around governance of school districts. And so I think for Director Gerber and Director Baginski, it was an opportunity to hear from people to talk about what it means to be on a school board, not just in Washington, but in lots of other areas of the country.
All right, I'll jump in on this. Yeah, it was a great conference, great eye opener. One thing I really took out of it is how good our board is, how compared to a lot of boards, like you said, you're comparing and contrasting and meeting with other boards from all over the nation there, and I feel like we got a really good board so far here. Like we agree to disagree, but we get along. We met a lot of boards just in social events or even during the sessions, and they don't get along at all, and it's hard to get anything resolved there. So I feel that was a great response on the Othello board, and how so far. So I mean, yeah, we're still new, young, but so far it's going good, but a lot of it is on the conference is like the list, clarifying about the district's vision, like making sure that we have a vision set and what our vision is, and the expectations and the parameters of our staff and what we expect out of them and what we expect out of the board. So we got to make sure that the board does their fair share too, so that everybody's on the same page for the benefit of the kids and stuff. And then demand accountability, like the steps and the process of it. If something's not going right, who do you go to so that things get resolved and resolved quickly and stuff. So, but great seminars. There were so many seminars, and we couldn't. A lot of them were at the same time, so you couldn't always hit every one of them. But it was well worth the time that we spent and enjoyed every minute of it.
This one that we went to that Chris was mentioning talked a lot about policy, and I'm a big policy and procedure guy. I do a lot of that at my work. I really liked a lot of the stuff they said about how policy is the implementation of the vision of the direction that we're headed, and that how it's supposed to represent the goals that we have for our students. One thing they mentioned that I really liked was how that our policies should reflect our community values, and that the community should be given the opportunities to have input on those policies. And we wanted to talk about that, on getting community input for the policies, and about how to apply what we want to do, and then also how they're being held accountable for those things. And so I really enjoyed the discussions that they had us do about policy, where we talked both with each other and with other board members about how that's all supposed to work.
All right, thank you for sharing that one. That was another really nice thing about the conference together. So those administrators in the room who attend conferences with their colleagues, you do try and scatter and make sure you can hit multiple events, but it's also nice to have someone there with you. And so the thought partners and sort of seeing the teams develop as we stand in the hallway and say, where are you going? Where are you going? To try and stay connected. And Izaro, in fact, made a really close friend from Michigan in one of our sessions. And so there was excellent opportunities to connect with people from across the country. School site visits. This was one that Director Gerber attended, and he wanted to share a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, so like Pete was saying earlier, that part of attending these is seeing what we're doing right, and this was a big one. They talked a lot about school site visits, and we're doing that, and a lot of what they talked about that we should be accomplishing those site visits are things that we're doing, and I know that a lot of the board says that the site visits are one of their favorite parts of the job. It certainly is for me. So the first part was about that, and it was really nice to hear about those things. The second part talked a lot about strategic planning as well as kind of board superintendent relations. One thing that they talked about a lot was that the board is meant to steer the boat, not row the boat. And I think some of us like to get into the rowing sometimes, but it was a good reminder for us that we are steering. Talked about, we're always trying to avoid surprises between us and with the superintendent and avoiding hidden agendas. And one thing that stood out to me was they talked about how longer serving boards and longer serving superintendents equals more student success. And so I really enjoyed this one about the planning and about working together with board and superintendent.
All right, thank you. We had an opportunity as well to sit in some more global sessions, and that was an opportunity of the keynotes. And so I included all the board members here. This was a conversation about the Dignity Index, and it really was we weren't sure walking into it how it was going to feel, and I think whatever side of the political spectrum you're on, I think you left that room feeling pretty good about how we talk with one another. So I would open it up to anyone who had a particular moment or feeling when we were listening to that keynote.
They had 3 really good keynote speakers, and we were able to attend all 3 of them. And this one was really good. Can't think of his name.
Kennedy,
yeah, Schreiber. He's just an excellent presentation, but just the number sequence is how to address situations so that you come in with a thought process. You're not flying off the grill. You're not. You keep them level-headed so that you can get things resolved more strategically, more quickly. And so that's what this index kind of shows is different levels so that you can address all sorts of different situations and stuff. So that's the numbering system just kind of is how you approach. If it's a hot topic or not, and then how do you address the situation and stuff. So, excellent guest speaker, though.
I thought it was, sorry. I thought it was particularly relevant to a school board because we are 5 people with 5 different opinions, and then you add in our superintendent. We're 6 people with 6 different opinions. We don't always agree in the decision or the direction that we're taking. But there are ways to communicate that are productive and that can still move a board forward and a district forward without it being contentious. And so I thought there was something for all of us to learn. It was particularly helpful, I thought.
Yeah, he did a wonderful job of explaining to us how you can go into a room, and Pete kind of started it off. If you're a Democrat and a Republican, obviously there's a big deal, but how you can ask questions to still get to the end of the line or fix the problem without offending somebody, or how to ask a question without making that other person feel horrible or that they are in the wrong. But he was great. All the key speakers, like Chris said, they were amazing. There were stories that I don't think anybody walked out of one of those general sessions that wasn't touched or moved or something. So, and I want to say thank you to the community and everybody. It was great to go up there, and then it also helped us being on the board to get to know each other and spend some time and figure out, you know, how everybody thinks and how everybody does things. So thank you, and thank you, Pete.
Yeah, I appreciate the attendance and the participation by the board. One of the things that I think that Lindsay talked about in being part of a board, certainly over the last 3 or 4 years, we've dealt with some unusual circumstances in our country around the pandemic, around some other sort of more regional and local issues. And how do we talk to one another? Everybody on this school board was born and raised in Othello, have deep connections here. And so what does that allow them to move forward? But what does it at moments ask them to step back and say, maybe I don't really understand this perspective, and to take a deep breath, to say, tell me more, to remain calm. And the other part that I remember from our sort of interactions during the pandemic was our kids are watching us. They're watching how we interact with one another, and I really appreciate the efforts that this board is making to stay in that blue area and as we learn together. The next part about NSBA, I want you to hear from Sebastian and from Katie about their experience and what they learned and how they felt about it. So I'll turn it over to them.
So this is my perspective on our NSBA conference. My favorite part was exploring New Orleans, as well as trying out some really amazing food that I really miss. Yeah, all of us bonded in a way as well. So besides like the conference, we also like came together as a board, So that was really fun. Another favorite part was learning concepts and ideas that I've never thought of before, and hearing other perspective, a few other students' perspectives, and as well as adults in the education area as well. And overall, good vibes. You know, perfect. It was positive. It was warm. It was inviting. It was really good. Something I learned from one of the keynotes, Ruby Bridges, a quote from her presentation was that evil just needs you to open up and let it in so that you become the vehicle to do its work. That quote was honestly like, that stuck with me ever since we finished with NSBA, and her speech was amazing. It really opened my eyes to how she dealt with racism and evil, and seeing all the impacts that her and many other civil rights activists did to have kids be in education and everyone having the right to an education. So that was really amazing. As well as the student leadership, Pendergast Elementary School District, they have tons of kids who are being able to be part of the board in some way, shape, or form to provide that impact, to feel inclusive by voicing their opinions and other students' opinions. So that was really good to see kids as young as in middle school do something like this that's big and helping them improve on their skills as well. I also attended a anti-hate and anti-racism strategy by the Toronto School District, so all the way in Canada, so that was pretty cool as well. They have a strategy to not push students against each other, but to uplift each other and celebrate everyone's differences. They start, how they do that is starting with their data, and they address systemic barriers to give resources and support teaching and learning for students and teachers, students to students as well. So that was pretty cool, hearing how they tackle hate and racism from students. And here are some pictures. The crawfish was kind of good. That was really good. I never tried crawfish or like eating crawfish, so that was a new experience for me as well. And some of the pictures were from the keynote speaker, like Ruby Bridges. Oh man, that was the top keynote of the whole thing. And then we saw through Bourbon Street, we saw like a big cathedral as well. That was really pretty. And then we had a really good time. So.
Perspective, I'll be talking about my favorite parts. I'd say out of all the parts, I really enjoyed the Pontchartrain Drive because it was a giant lake, and just looking out the window, it seemed like an endless ocean, and we were in the middle of it, and it felt really scary, but also really cool at the same time. I definitely love the flight since I find flights really relaxing, especially with the thought of just going somewhere new and exploring. And then I definitely bonded with the student representatives and our school board members. They just felt like a giant family. And I almost called Mrs. Garza mom too many times. As for the cuisine, I got to try 4 different types of tenders. Yeah, they're really good. We also tried crawfish. I tried crawfish gummies, which are really good. As for the learning opportunities at NASBA, all of them are amazing. I couldn't necessarily choose a favorite one because all of them had something unique and different to offer on the table. Yeah, everything was just really amazing. But something I learned, these 3 were some of the sessions I included. I put it these ones because I gained like a new perspective out of these. For the very first one, it was about a school lunch session, how a lot of districts were switching to a scratch-based meals program where they make the lunch at the school fresh. And then there was a lot of statistics behind students on how much debt they usually graduate with. I believe it was 50% of all students graduate with some sort of debt coming from school lunch by itself. And then they started talking about the benefits towards scratch-based meals in which the kitchen staff will have like a full-time job since it includes a lot of forced labor into it. And it'd be beneficial towards the students since they'll be fed food that they'll actually try to enjoy. As for the second one, it was about a school district utilizing AI. And they had the main message that AI doesn't have to be all banned, yeah. This district specifically, they incorporated it with some staff on how they used it for our project, and they had students take advantage of it. And then they started using it as a teaching guide as well. As for my favorite one out of all of them, I believe it was the Hispanic School Conference, since this was a school in Texas, and they had a population of 41.3 Hispanic population. But compared to ours, I believe ours is like 90% of Hispanics. So some of the methods they used to better communicate and get the community involved was that they had their local soccer games in Spanish. And then they also had their own radio show, which I thought was really cool. And then they also utilized Mexican convenience stores, churches, to get more messages out through the community. And then here are some pictures I included. At the top left was Katie and I, our WASDA bander. Then bottom left was Mr. Lyle, my new friend. And then the top few ones are, what's his name again? Richard Montianes and Ruby Bridges. The bottom one was a plane flight. And there was just some architecture and a big church we saw. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you to the reps for your careful thinking and sharing about your learning. And that's it for superintendent informational items, Ken.
I wanted one last thing on NSB. We also had a fire drill at 3 a.m. and that the kids, most of us would have passed, but not everybody on the board would have passed fire safety drill for the Othello School. But it was fun. It was an eye opener, and the kids, I believe, got selfie with the firefighters, and it ended up just being a bad alarm or something. But we all had to evacuate, or most of us did. But so that was entertaining. So, but it was great. Yeah, thanks again to the community for allowing us to go, and the school to putting it in the budget for us, because it was well worth the money we spent.
Definitely want to thank the school district for giving us this opportunity. It was a really, really amazing opportunity. I'll be forever grateful for you guys, and this will stay in my heart forever. What I also thought was really funny was that I forgot my belt, and I had a shoelace to keep my pants up in the conference for the first 3 days. It was not fun.
Yeah, I would like to say thank you as well. With that fire drill, I did not pass that test, just saying. It's okay, but all my teachers will be sad, but oh well.
I'd like to thank Pete and Miles for keeping the plane on the ground so we could make it home. Sebastian, he left us behind. So I'd like to thank you for that.
Any more comments on the NSBA? It's always a great opportunity because you never know, some of these things that are shared with us, bring them back. It may take a little bit of time, but sometimes you can see them implemented. And now, know in the past, there's been different conferences that our staff has went to that are programs that we are now using and succeeding very well in. And I just really appreciate everybody's time that they took out to attend this and bring back your input on it. Thank you. From there, we'll go to the Transportation Department report.
Good afternoon. So I just have a quick little presentation here on the transportation team. It is our mission of the OSD Transportation Department to provide a safe, courteous, and professional means of transportation for all of our students. And this is our transportation team, pretty current for this school year. Each year we have a theme for our department, and this year our theme was Bee Mode instead of Beast Mode. And so we had these shirts made for everybody, and on the back of them it has be kind, be awesome, be amazing, and be positive. And so we kind of have the bee theme going on in our department. And after I put this presentation together, I had this meme show up on one of my social media, and it says, "Bumblebees symbolize the value of perseverance and the rewards of continuous effort, reminding us that dedication to our goals can lead to sweet outcomes. They highlight the importance of working together and the strength found in unity, underscoring how collective efforts can achieve greater results than individual endeavors." And I feel like that's what our department does and our district. That it takes all of us for one goal, our kids. How we do it is with great staff, our entire district. They're just all great. Continuous training, which includes staff training days. And for our department, we have 2 safety meetings a month. There's WACs and laws that we have to keep our drivers make sure that they're following. We have training days where we do scenarios. So we've done active shooter trainings on our school buses, and we have to do fire drill practice. And there's a lot to be a school bus driver, and we have to keep them up to date. Our transportation office is open from 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. We want to be there when our drivers come in and be there when they get in. So it's a long day, but we have our staff scheduled to make sure that we're there for if parents are in need, missing students, whatever the need might be. Our office, we track all of our phone calls, and we average about 30 calls a day just on students' address changes, babysitter changes, and so trying to keep that all, make sure our kids get to the right stop and stuff is an ongoing process. This is our staffing information. Our current state, we have 29 contracted drivers. We only have 2 sub-drivers, and those are very iffy. One drives for another district, and then another one has a second job, and so they're not available all the time. We have 1 mechanic, 1 assistant mechanic, and then we have 1 part-time mechanic / bus driver. So she drives for 4 hours a day and works in the shop for 4 hours a day. We have 8 bus monitors and 3 sub-bus monitors currently. Our ideal state would be 30 bus drivers, 5+ sub-drivers, 2 mechanics, 2 assistant mechanics, keeping our 1 part-time, and then 10 bus monitors with 5 subs. I'll go back to this really quick. So I had kind of taken some notes why it's hard to find drivers. I think the number 1 reason is that they're intimidated by either the size of the school bus or the 70 kids that are behind them on the school bus, but also the training that it takes to become a school bus driver, to get your CDL. There's a minimum of 40 hours of training, 3 days of classroom where it's all WACs and RCWs that we have to follow. And they can't have more than 2 speeding tickets in a 5-year period. They have to have a background check. They have to be 21, and that's set by OSPI. Other states allow them to be 18, but Washington State requires 21 to be 21. There's physical requirements, there's testing, like getting on and off of the bus, jumping out of the bus, having to lift so much weight. The actual testing, they have to take 4 written tests at the Department of Licensing, and then they have to do a skills test, which is a pre-trip inspection of the bus, which has to be word for word. The tester makes sure that you say every word, cracked, broken, on the belts and stuff of the bus, checking the tread of the tires, that kind of stuff. Doing a brake check, knowing when the emergency brake should be popping out. And so it can be kind of intimidating. So once you get them through that part, then hopefully you keep them. As far as mechanics, our pay has gotten better, but it's really hard for us to keep up with the private sectors. So we go off of offering other things, a great work environment, flexibility in our schedule. If they have kids in the system, being able to go and see their kids get an award or what have you. We provide all of the tools, and then we give them training opportunities at Cummins for diesel training and Bryson Cells. And we have a very good relationship with Bryson Cells with their staff that have come on site to do training with our mechanics. And even if we find somebody that might not be qualified, we can groom them to what they need for being a good mechanic. And then finding the right candidate is important in building our team, even for our drivers. Every year, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, we have to go through 2 state inspections, and one starts tomorrow. That's why Holly's not here. So that's where they come in and they inspect every bus, the Washington State Patrol, and then they inspect all of our motor pool cars also that can carry students. And so starting tomorrow, they'll go through all of our buses, all of our motor pool, and then we get a surprise winter inspection anytime after November 1st. And they come in for that. It's a surprise. You don't know they're coming. And they have to do 25% of your fleet, just our buses. And if we fail so many, then they have to inspect everything. We've never had that happen, knock on wood. Hopefully we don't, because we have great mechanic staff and drivers, because they have to do a lot of the prepping too. Our routes, this is what we currently have. 5 special needs routes. We transport about 75 special needs students. That includes the preschool SPED students. We have 2 just preschool routes, morning and afternoon, and then 10 midday. And we average about 160 a day for preschoolers. That's where most of our phone calls come in, is on the preschool routes. And then we have 21 basic routes. 8 of those are tier, which means they go out and get high school students, bring them in and drop them, and go back and get the elementary students. So if you wanted to go back to where we just had 1 bell time, we would need 8 more drivers to get them all here on time. And this actually works out really well with how the bell times are right now, because some of those routes make it back and can help out. Since we're lacking subs, then they can drive for us also. And we average 1,100 basic students morning and afternoon. 1 sped route to Pasco. That's actually one of our students that is no longer a student, but he's hearing impaired, and they only offer the program down there. And so we have a driver that drives them to and from every day to Pasco. And then we have our CB Tech route that transports about 40 students. So with 1 mechanic, 1 assistant mechanic, and a part-time mechanic, assistant mechanic, we're taking care of 44 school buses, 21 motor pool vehicles for SPED, federal programs in technology, and then our cars that go out for different conferences. And then maintenance, we have 16. That's just their service trucks. We don't really do their equipment unless it's a necessity. And then dining, we have 4. So 85 vehicles for the mechanic staff that we currently have. miles traveled just for the Othello School District. Last year, we were, for athletics and activities, 41,436 miles. Field trips, we went to 12,298, and our to from was 311,152. This year, till the end of March, we were already at 34,000, almost 35 for activities, athletics, 7,600 for field trips, and 236 for the to and from miles. And then these are just some frequently asked questions that we get. Why do we not pick up students in town? Number one, we're not funded for those, nor are we staffed to do that. So how our boundaries are in town works out really good for students not having to walk in unsafe areas to get to school. And we offer a shuttle bus that goes to all of the elementary schools and the high school to pick up and like shuttle kids to where they need to go, whatever their home building is. And that works out really well. And we offer that for secondary and elementary. And then why are our routes so long? Because our stops range. We go out to Royal Slope, down to the Warden, Providence Road, up to the fire station, up on Sage Hill, and out to Booker on 17. And usually when we get stops, new stops, they're like at the very end of the county, so our routes are pretty long. We don't stop at every house because as school bus drivers, we have laws that we have to abide by, and we have to have so much space between bus stops to activate our 8-way lights. We do have our routes built to where they're just right-hand stops and nobody's having to cross like roads. It's safer that way. And so that also affects like why routes might be longer. So, and then bus stop locations are kind of decided based on the age of students in that area. And then one afterthought also was there's a WAC that school bus drivers cannot give anything edible to students. And so that's why we don't give candy as rewards. That's why it's frustrating when teachers give candy as rewards, because it's a choking hazard, and there's one driver for 70 kids, and there's allergies. And so that driver's not only having to watch the road, but all these students. And so the only edible items that we actually allow are water and then diabetic snacks if we have a student on our bus that needs that. And we work with the nurse for that. Any questions?
Just one quick question.
Yes.
So in the discrepancies between staffing and ideal staffing, you're making it sound like it's more of an availability problem, not like a budget problem or anything like that?
No,
Availability of
it's
drivers?
availability. It's
Okay.
finding staff. Same with mechanics. I mean, and finding qualified staff. And so we're constantly searching, and the right people come along.
Right. Okay.
I just want to thank you, Marion, for all you do. It's with my kids, obviously, on the bus. I grew up on the bus. Had one bus driver my whole tenure, Gail Bohannon, and she was a teacher too. As I look back on it, so it's very important. I love the analogy with the bees, because in the agricultural world, if we don't have bees, we don't have food. So I piece the two together here. If we don't have the buses and the people to get it, it's really hard to get the kids to school and safely. And so I love that analogy. It's so true. And like the bees are shortage. So yeah, obviously I understand there are shortages too. But the bus routes, I love how you're always thinking, you're always trying to change. Because I know when my kids first started, they were on long bus routes, but by the school district changing the times, that seems to be working a lot better for us kids that got to be on that bus for a long time. I love how you're always thinking and trying to make it shut down, quicker and easier and stuff. So it seems to be working better now. I know my kids aren't on it nowhere near as they used to be.
Right.
Before it was almost like they were on before 7 and they wouldn't get home till after 4 or 4:30 and
Right.
that's a lot for a young kid but that's that's how it was when I was on it. But the alternate, you're picking up the high school kids separate and then the younger kids, so that I think that's working. I like that. I mean, there's always going to be issues. I know my kids had some issues on the bus with older kids. I remember being same boat. It's tough when you only got one person for 70 kids. So
Right.
I know you're doing the best you can, and some of I think it's got to be on the parents too to get their kids in order too and stuff. I keep doing what you're doing. I think you're heading in the right direction, and it's tough, but whatever we can do to help, you got my blessing. So
We can train you.
yes,
Yeah.
I've been yeah. No, I see your posters and the money being offered. Yeah, it has crossed my mind. And going forward with the CDL program, I see this something that's going to benefit you guys down the road. With these kids getting the CDL, they got to wait till they're 21, but it should get some more candidates for the district down
Yeah.
the road, I would think.
That's
so.
how we're looking at it, and
Yeah,
it's a
that's
great
great.
program.
Yes.
Thank you.
Just to add on to the bee analogy, the bees work so hard because they love their queen. And I think that you epitomize that. You are the queen of the transportation department, and everybody loves you and respects you and wants to work hard because you're such a great leader. And when I think of female leaders in this district, you are at the top of the list for someone who knows how to motivate people and treats their employees well and is such a great leader. And so I just want to commend you for that the queen bee really matters. So
Well, thank
well
you.
done.
Thank you.
I also want to say thank you so much, because you have one of the hardest jobs during the winter, and that's to call those days, and I'm glad that you do it, because you have our kids' well-being. And so if you ever feel like you need to, and there's a lot of noise, I'm a big boy, put me in front of those noise and I'll take care of that for you. But I really do, I thank you a lot, because you get our kids to and from, and I really appreciate that, and your whole staff as well.
Thank you very much.
I just want to add a couple things, Ken. Certainly along the lines of Marion's leadership with the transportation folks, I think you heard her talk about her influence and participation in bell times and what that means. She's thinking about the student experience, but also getting kids there safely. The innovative ideas about the CDL program that might feel like a T&L and a CTE concept, which it truly is, but it involves Marion's staff helping out to make that go in her facility. And the other thing, like many of you, maybe like me, use Siri to figure out where you're supposed to go and how to get there. If you have any question about where to go in Othello, you just call Marion, and you're going to go here and turn right at the blue Volkswagen that's been parked there for 7 years, and then you'll be there. So she has a deep understanding of where our kids live and is always focused on how do we get them to school safely. So thank you today to Marion for sharing her work, and for the board for their careful listening and questions for her. Thank you.
Thank you, Marion, very much. And even for other districts, how you step out, especially the one incident where we had a couple buses coming for athletics this winter. And your crew and yourself went above and beyond what was expected and what you did to accommodate those different schools, and putting them up in the building down there for a while until we could get transportation and everything aligned for them. That was just wonderful. Thank you. With that, we will go to public comment. Do we have any public comment? Okay. Then upcoming events. We have the board retreat this Thursday. You'll be here in the boardroom from 8 a.m. till 3 p.m. Then we have the pre-K site visit, May 21st. And then we have our next regular board meeting back here at 1 p.m. on the 28th. Is there any other items to add to that?
I did want to mention we all got invited to the open house at the Old Hotel Art Gallery They are featuring some artwork from students in our district, and that's tomorrow, Tuesday, May 14th, from 6 to 7:30. So they invited us to that.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have a time yet for the preschool visit?
8 a.m.
Okay.
Okay, and then from here, we will do the Board of Self-Assessment after the executive session. So at this time, the board will recess into executive session for 15 minutes to discuss the performance of a public employee. No action will be taken afterwards. We'll meet back in Pete's office in 3 minutes.